Welcome. And it is that time of the week, the Dynasty Waiver Wire show for you Dynasty D-Gens out there. Kind of getting towards the end of the year. You should know at this point if you're competing or not. So maybe roster spots are opening. So we have a mix of, guys that can potentially help you this year, but also guys that you could potentially stash ahead of next year. And let's just jump right into it with the quarterback position. Starting off with CJ Beathard. CJ Beathard, I think there's a chance he eventually takes over, especially if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play. I don't think they're just going to keep rolling out Mac Jones out there because he's just been god awful. And so I would expect CJ Beathard to potentially take over, assuming Trevor Lawrence is out. We don't know. We don't have news yet. I know he's kind of trying to come back, but it's almost like, why? Like, why? Get the number one pick, tank, so you can sell it for a fortune. But I know that's not how players are wired and things like that. But CJ Beathard, I do think should should be rostered at this point, assuming the latest report on Lawrence is he's trying to come back, but surgery is still in question. So doesn't sound great there. Joshua Dobbs is another one where I think he could get a chance. Brock Purdy is still not throwing, and that's pretty concerning when you're a quarterback and you're not even able to throw. So like there's a chance that he misses even more time. And if the Niners keep losing, right? Maybe they keep rolling with Brandon Allen, or maybe they try out Josh Dobbs. I don't know why you wouldn't give Josh Dobbs a chance. It feels like he at least gives you a little bit better opportunity because of his legs. So, I think Josh Dobbs, if he's still out there in super flex leagues, we saw what he was doing last year when he was running the ball. I think he needs to be rostered. Jordan Travis is an interesting one. There's kind of the drama going around with Aaron Rodgers. Sounds like they kind of hashed it out a little bit, but that being said, like, what if he just kind of tanks it, nails it in for the rest of the season? Jordan Travis, I don't think he would get an opportunity. I think it would be Tyrod Taylor, but then Jordan Travis is next in line. Who, he had the big knee injury. I'm not a big Jordan Travis fan, but the Jets are just kind of a mess. I think they're going to win enough games to not get a top pick, so they could be rolling into the season looking for a quarterback. And maybe Jordan Travis gets a chance to fight for the job next year. Who knows? And then Carson Wentz, I keep mentioning it with Mahomes. This was more when Mahomes was kind of beat up and stuff, but I wouldn't mind rostering Mahomes' backup, Carson Wentz, because I do think he could actually be pretty solid if he's put into that situation. God forbid he has to replace Patrick Mahomes. Into some running backs here. Hassan Haskins is an obvious one. We don't have many running backs on this list today, but Hassan Haskins is pretty obvious, especially with the J.K. Dobbins injury. Sounds like he's going to miss multiple weeks. It's going to be Gus Edwards. It's going to be Kamani Vidal. It's going to be Hassan Haskins. We don't really know exactly how it's going to shape out. It's probably going to be Gus Edwards leading the way, but what if they kind of, roll with Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal? Who knows? They're going to use multiple guys, and now Hassan Haskins, who I've been saying pick him up all year long, is going to have a chance. Isaiah Davis is another guy that I liked coming out of the draft. The Jets drafted him in the 5th round, a round after they drafted Braylon Allen. He's 3rd on the depth chart, but I think he's out there in a lot of leagues because I think people think it's Brees and Braylon Allen and then a huge gap. I don't know if there's a huge gap between Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. I think Isaiah Davis is a good player, so I wouldn't mind picking him up. Keelan Robinson. This is more for a next year stash, but he's a rookie 5th round pick that was hurt all year. They on Jacksonville, by the way. They activated him from the IR, I think, last week. He's probably more of just a return guy, but he has some receiving ability. He's super fast. I think there's some intrigue here. And he's a guy that I would maybe pick up for next year. Now, that being said, they're going to be changing coaches and potentially GMs, and that's never a good mix for these lower round picks. But I like Keelan Robinson. I think he has a decent skill set, especially if you are playing in any type of return leagues, right? Any type of return league. So moving right along, Tyler Bidet, and I guess that's how he wants to pronounce Tyler Bidet. And he's a guy that I would be picking up potentially in deeper leagues because he might be coming off the IR. And if you remember Denver before putting him on the IR, he was pretty decent. he was getting some decent usage, I should say. He had basically one game. He had 9 carries, 70 yards, but then they seemed to want to use him that next game, and then he got hurt. This was all the way back in September. I don't think they're just going to activate him and make him, give him significant role or anything, but just in case they do for you deeper leagues. Cody Schrader is a guy I've been talking about all year long. He is a rookie, undrafted guy out of Missouri. Actually led the SEC. He led the SEC in rushing last year. He led them in rushing, and a lot of people liked him coming out of college. And he went to the 49ers in the beginning, and then he got cut, and now he's on the Rams active roster. Sorry, I was just looking something up. He's on the Rams active roster, and he's a pretty interesting player. And the Rams are one of those teams. I want all the running backs on their active roster. Jordan Mims is another guy I've been bringing up week after week. He's currently the RB2. As long as Jamal Williams is hurt, he's the RB2 for the Saints. Jordan Mims. And if something happens to kind of old man Kamara, it could be Mims next up. Like, he's that close to him being like fantasy relevant. He needs to be picked up, especially if you have Kamara, but just in general. Jamal Williams hasn't been healthy. Kendre Miller hasn't been healthy. Alvin Kamara is receiving a huge workload, but we know he's a little bit older. There's a clear path for Jordan Mims to have a role. Craig Reynolds is another guy, especially with he's on the Lions, especially with David Montgomery being a little bit beat up. I think he's okay, but just in case, Craig Reynolds. And also the Lions are one of those teams, again, I want all the running backs on their active roster. Sione Vaki, Craig Reynolds, obviously Gibbs and Montgomery. Because if one of those guys get hurt, we're going to see an increased role for one of the two guys, either Craig Reynolds or Sione Vaki. Craig Reynolds is technically the RB3 on the depth chart. However, I do think Sione Vaki is more rostered because he's a rookie. Another running back here, Rasheen Ali, been hurt all year. A guy that I did like coming out of college, I believe he went to Marshall, has been hurt all year. I do think if something were to happen to Derrick Henry, that Rasheen Ali is actually like the prime candidate to take the early down between the tackles work. I don't think we're going to see an increased role really from Justice Hill. I don't think Keaton Mitchell is going to be a guy that can take the workload. It's probably going to be a mix of all three, but I do think Rasheen Ali would be the prime candidate to take that in between the tackles early down work. And I think he's intriguing, and he's finally healthy. Into some receivers here, have a lot of receivers to go over. Isaiah Williams, he's actually on the Bengals. I know he's in the Lions uniform there. I like Isaiah Williams. He's a rookie out of Illinois. He was on the Lions active roster for a bit. Now he's on the Bengals active roster. He's a tough, gritty player, and I think he could fit into their slot role that they've been trying to fill since Tyler Boyd left. I think Isaiah Williams next year could fill that role, right? So there's going to be some changes at the receiver position. T. Higgins could be gone. Who's going to replace T. Higgins? And who's going to replace the slot role? I think it potentially could be Isaiah Williams. So he's a long-term stash that I want to keep for next year, especially if you're trying to rebuild. Jamari Thrash is a guy I haven't really talked about too much, but he's currently the wide receiver for the Browns. And he's another like tough slot player, gadget type of player. He played at Louisville and Georgia State, fifth round pick for the Browns. And I think he's intriguing, especially again, like Elijah Moore. Is he going to stick around? I don't know. Cedric Tillman, is he the real deal? Who knows? Like maybe Jamari Thrash has an expanded role next year, kind of like the role that Elijah Moore is getting this year. Devin Duvernay, he's also been hurt all year long. He's on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their receiving core is absolutely decimated. Their team is absolutely decimated. And Devin Duvernay is considered the wide receiver 4 for the team. He's obviously their special teams guy. He can make big plays. Devin Duvernay is someone that I would be interested in potentially rostering in best ball and deeper leagues. Ramel Keaton. Ramel Keaton for the Las Vegas Raiders is an undrafted guy, an undrafted rookie that is also getting some more run ever since Devontae Adams left. He has good size, 6'2", 191. He went to school at Tennessee. He's been getting in games at times. He had a game of over 44% of the snaps. Hasn't played that much the last 2 weeks, but if something were to happen to Jacoby Myers or Trey Tucker, or DJ Turner, who's also on this list. I thought, yes, DJ Turner, the other Raiders guy. Ramo Keaton seems to be the next guy up in line. Obviously, this is, we're talking about the Raiders here. We can hardly even start one. It's basically one receiver, one tight end on their team, and that's about it. But DJ Turner is another guy here who's out there a lot. He's kind of, he's been playing recently, 53, 34, 43, 62% of the snaps. He's going to catch a touchdown. He's getting 4 targets, like almost basically since Devontae Adams left. He's had 4 targets or more in like all but 2 games. So he's out there. He's getting targets. He'll catch a touchdown here and there. So in best ball, who knows what will happen if you happen to play. Anais Smith is a guy for next year that I want to be stashing. Rookie, 5th round pick, I believe. Out of Missouri, Texas A&M, was hurt for most of the year. So he's not really going to get much playing time this year. You see his snap percentage, 13. He missed the first 7 weeks of the season. Since week 8, 13-6, 26-8, and 10% snap share. I like his skill set and how it kind of fits in with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And so next year, I think he could kind of take over that 3rd wide receiver spot and, provide a little bit of production from that spot. He can carry the ball. He was a former running back. So I like Anais Smith and his skill set for next year. David Moore is someone for this year if you need in these deeper leagues. If you need a guy going into the playoffs, like David Moore, and I mentioned him a few weeks ago and basically said, look, he's older. He's been around a while. He's almost 30 years old. The guy's playing. Look at his snap percent. I just hit my foot. His snap percentage, and that hurt. Over the last 4 weeks, 82%, 87%, 83%, and 94%. He's out there a lot. I think he's running the most routes for the Panthers. He had 10 targets last week, guys. I told you about him after week 8 and said, look, this guy played 82% of the snaps, and I thought it was mostly because of Thielen. That's not necessarily the case here. That's not necessarily the case. Maurice Alexander, he's on the Detroit Lions. And the reason I bring this up is because the Lions are also becoming a little bit, hurt at the wide receiver position. Obviously, you have Jameson Williams, Tim Patrick, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's their 1, 2, 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown has a questionable tag right now. I think he's going to be okay. Maybe he misses a week. Allen Robinson's also on the team. And after that, it's Maurice Alexander. Khalif Raymond, their punt returner, is going to go on IR. So it's basically you have Amon-Ra, Jameson, Tim Patrick, Allen Robinson, and then Maurice Alexander. If something were to happen to one of those other guys, does Alexander see a little bit more of the playing time, right? And, does he put up solid numbers every now and then? Again, we're talking about for you deep roster, you deep teams with these rosters. So, I don't think, and I'm just double checking here, I want to say Maurice Alexander he has 1 catch in his career. So he's actually been on the Lions for a couple of years, has 1 catch in his career, but we'll see. We'll see what he does. He might be just a punt return replacement for Khalif Raymond. Diami Brown is someone here that I mentioned. He's been getting on the field a little bit more recently, about 30 to 40% of the snaps. We know he's a deep threat, can catch the home run ball. So if you play in best ball, he's the kind of player that I want to roster. Xavier Weaver for a future. This is for the future. Xavier Weaver, he's a rookie out of Colorado. I like his skill set as well. He was also, I believe, injured to begin the year. He's on the Cardinals active roster. And, I wouldn't say that their wide receiver room is set for next year. You have Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison. And what do you have beyond that? And even Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson are a little bit of a question mark. So Xavier Weaver, if he gets his opportunity to compete, could become the wide receiver 3 for the Cardinals. Stranger things have happened. Bo Melton, obviously with the Romeo Dobbs injury, is probably going to see a little bit more, and he's ruled out, by the way, is probably going to see a little bit more playing time here. Malik Heath is another one as well that should see a little bit more playing time. Malik Heath, I actually think Malik Heath was playing more when was it Dobbs was out. It was actually Malik Heath that was playing more. I think a lot of people are more familiar with Bo Melton because I think he had a big game, but it was actually Malik Heath playing more snaps. Just for what it's worth, could see an increased snap percentage week. And then Mac Hollins is the last one here. I keep bringing him up. As long as Keon Coleman is out, Hollins is going to get some playing time. He's going to, draw some targets. You just look at his last three weeks, 68% of the snaps, 5 targets, 5 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. 88% of the snaps, 4 targets, 4 catches, 86 yards. 56% of the snaps, 2 targets, 2 catches, 27 yards. He did have 2 decent weeks. He had a 14-point week in PPR and a 12.5-point week in PPR in weeks 9 and 10. That's start worthy in a lot of these deeper dynasty leagues. It absolutely is. Absolutely is. Into some tight ends here. Julian Hill, I keep bringing up. He is an intriguing athletic tight end that it was coming out of college, out of Campbell, was more of a receiving threat. He's 6'4", 250. He's on the Dolphins, by the way. He is playing. He's out there and playing about 40% of the snaps or so. Obviously, Jonnu Smith, 40 to 50. Jonnu Smith is the clear receiving tight end for them. But what if Jonnu Smith, for whatever reason, is not on the Dolphins this coming year, for whatever reason, or something happens to him? I think they're kind of grooming Julian Hill to be their starting guy, and just look at what Jonnu's doing with Tua. Jaheim Bell is another tight end. A lot of people liked him and his versatility in college. I think he had a year in college where he rushed the ball for 75 times, which is kind of crazy for a tight end. I think he was more of a fullback hybrid. But he had a disappointing last year in college. I think he fell to the 6th or 7th round. He's on the Patriots. They have obviously Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. I don't think Hooper's going to be on the team next year. Jaheim Bell's intriguing. He has an intriguing skill set. I don't think he reminds me more of a Chiga Okonkwo type of tight end, where they're not going to use him as a blocker at all. He's more of a receiving guy. He's just a big wide receiver, essentially. But, for fantasy, that's what we want to see. It's going to limit his time on the field, but we do want to see his ability to catch the ball. And then A.J. Barner and Cade Stover. I didn't put Cade Stover this time, but both rookies drafted in the 4th round, I believe. A.J. Barner's been getting more playing time with Noah Fant. I think A.J. Barner's probably rostered in a lot of dynasty leagues, but if he's not, maybe throw him a look. He's been getting some targets the last 3 weeks, 7, 4, and 4. Hasn't done much with them, but he's at least drawing targets. So that is the Dynasty Waiver Wire Show. Appreciate everyone. Hope to see you all soon, and I will catch you guys all very, very soon.